Welcome to the World United. Welcome to the World United.
So today we are going to discuss on the mechanics of breath. This is a very important subject. There is much to know about breath and its mechanics. When I say mechanics, it means the anatomical aspects, the physiological aspects, and the complete mechanism of breathing and how it is going to help spiritually in terms of evolution of consciousness. This aspect we are going to discuss now. We have many systems in the body. All the systems need to work in coordination with each other, like cardiovascular system, respiratory system, nervous system, digestive system, excretory system, endocrine system. There are so many other systems as well. All the systems are autonomous in nature, independent in nature. They work on their own. The nature has created the autonomous function to these systems because if mind is absolutely influencing all the systems, we cannot survive. For example, we don't have to know how the heart beats to survive. What is the size of the heart? What is it made up of? How many vessels are connected to it, incoming and outgoing, and how the entire system works. Similarly, digestive system, what are the enzymes that are involved in digestion of the food, different types of food, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, fiber, etc. How the digestive system and its lead organs work in coordination with each other to digest the food, we don't have to know. It works automatically. This automatic nature is called as the autonomous nervous system. In all the systems, the excretory system, digestive system, nervous system, respiratory, cardiovascular system, breath is something which is both voluntary and involuntary. It breathes on its own, the lungs breathe on their own. At the same time, we can hold the breath for some time. We can control the breath. We can make the breath slower. We can breathe slower. We can exhale slower. We can do rapid breathing voluntarily. Though it is completely involuntary in nature. For example, during sleep, the lungs breathe on their own. It doesn't need the mental control. Unlike other systems, for example, we can't say our heart stop for a while. Let us see how it is going to happen. We can't say our kidneys stop for a while. We can't hold the functionality of the kidneys. We can't hold the functionalities of the nervous system. We can't hold the functionalities of the digestive system. When it comes to breathing, we can have some control. That is the exception of this system, respiratory system. Unlike all other systems, respiratory systems stand alone in terms of its nature of volition, nature of voluntary control that we exercise over it. So, how this respiratory system is important in spiritual evolution? The word spirituality contains the word spirit. The word spirit means breath. Spiritus in Greek means breath. Latin word for spiritus is pneuma, means air. So the word air is equivalent to spiritus. See the meaning how the word spirituality and air, breath are synonymous or similar in nature. So there is something special about the breath in terms of evolution of consciousness, in terms of spiritual evolution, in terms of enlightenment. So how this breath is really important in understanding the evolution of one's consciousness. Let us discuss further. If you take lungs, these lungs are collapsed in nature during the embryological stage, that means in utero stage. During the fetal stage, the lungs are totally collapsed because the baby is surrounded by fluid called as amniotic fluid, and this amniotic fluid or liquor doesn't allow lungs to suck the air because there is no air inside the uterus. All the oxygen and nutrients that are essential for the physical body, they come through the umbilical cord alone. The fetus doesn't breathe at all. It takes the oxygen and nutrients through the cord, umbilical cord, through the placental blood barriers. It draws the requirements. So there are some internet issues, it seems here.
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
So where am I? Yeah. The lungs by nature has a negative pressure, a strong negative pressure, less than 0. And there is a vast pressure gradient. That means when the atmospheric air is 76, the pressure gradient is between 78 to 79 millimeters of mercury. There is a strong pressure. So once the baby comes out of this dark chamber into the atmospheric air, because of the powerful pressure gradient between the birth passage and the atmospheric air, the lungs automatically sucks the air turbulently. It's not smooth, either during normal delivery or suction delivery, cesarean suction delivery. The air rushes in. More so in normal labor. In normal labor, there are 3 stages in the normal labor. The last stage, the head comes out and the body, placenta, everything comes out. The first stage of labor, it contains only pains, the movement of the contractions of the uterus and the movements of the fetus, and the fetus intuitively knows that something is going to happen. It intuitively knows that it is going to enter the atmospheric pressure, something is going to happen. And it is getting ready. The pelvic bones of the mother also open up to allow the baby come out. So all these birth pangs, especially in the first delivery of the mother, it takes almost 16 hours. Second delivery, third delivery, it will be definitely reduced. This birthing time will be reduced in the natural birthing process. So once the baby is out, it is exposed to the sudden shock of inhaling turbulent air. Suddenly the lungs expand and the baby lives independently. This sudden rush of air makes the baby forget about all the spiritual wisdom and his own nature of consciousness, his own previous lives, everything in a moment, just because of the first breath. First breath is the biggest shock in anybody's life. There is no incident, there can never be anything which is more shocking than the first breath. First breath is extremely shocking, so much that in a single moment, the baby forgets the previous lives. So to prevent all these things, there are so many ancient methods, there have been many traditional methods where the mothers used to deliver the babies in such a way that the rush of the air, the first breath is more smoother, more easy, more comfortable, and never turbulent, and never makes it forget the other realms, other frequencies, other worlds, and other lives, like a shock. So, for example, I was talking sometime earlier that mother of Gautama Buddha delivered him while hanging onto the branches of the sal trees in the Indo-Nepal border. She delivered the baby, Gautama the Buddha, in a standing position, and her assistants caught the baby. So that was the mode of delivery in those times. In a standing position, they used to deliver babies. Even in South American gypsy tribes and many African tribes, mothers used to deliver the babies in standing position, hanging the branches of the tree and allow the baby fall down. And the assistants or whoever it may be, they used to catch the baby, sever the cord and hand over the baby to the mother. and baby just the mother keeps her baby under the waist or the armpit and just moves on for cultivation or something else. It's not painless. If you observe animals, there could be some discomfort, but not as much pain as humans undergo. Why humans undergo a lot of pain during the birthing process? There are no cesarean sections in the animal world. You can't imagine cesarean section for a fish. You can't imagine cesarean section for a snake. You can't imagine cesarean section for any amoeba or anything. So why cesarean sections are more in human beings? Because of their strong belief system that labor is painful. The word, it is called labor. Birthing process is called as labor for humans. That means it is by default painful, and it is going almost like a second life because of excessive maternal mortality rate. It is almost called as second life, second lease of life. So because of the strong belief that it is painful, humans are feeling the pain during the birthing process, which is not exactly the same with animals. Animals, if you observe the babies of elephant, horse, rhinoceros, camel, very large, almost tons of weight. The baby elephant is almost a 1 ton weight during the birth time. Even that 1 ton baby can immediately stand up on its own legs. The baby calf, the baby horse, almost they can stand up in few minutes, a few seconds even, a few hours max. So why not human being? Why not human being? The baby gets up on his feet almost at the time of 9 months or 8 months or even more. So why the milestones are so much delayed in human beings? Because of a wrong belief system we humans have. The wrong belief system is mainly because the humans believe strongly that birthing is painful affair. So this birthing process and the forgetfulness of the other realms happens with the first entry of air into the lungs because of the strong pressure gradient. The same thing exists in animals as well, the same pressure gradient, everything. But the animals do not believe that labor is painful. And the birthing process is not as longer as the humans. 16 hours. It doesn't happen like that in any elephant or any other animal. So, and it is more smoother. And it is not controlled by the belief systems. So it is easy, natural, very comfortable. Not really painful. But when it comes to human beings, it is a completely opposite. And the baby is born. And baby starts breathing on its own. When it starts breathing on its own, the breathing is natural. Natural in the sense, the abdomen rises first with inhalation. The breathing is abdominothoracic in nature. Slowly, when he becomes adult, when the mind develops, when the mind influences the breath, what happens is the breathing is transforming into thoraco-abdominal instead of abdominothoracic. That means just first abdomen later is adult breathing. But the child's breathing is abdomen first, chest later. So what is the difference? There is a huge difference between abdominothoracic breathing and thoraco-abdominal breathing. So let us understand how these muscles, our body muscles, help in this breathing process. During the inhalation, that means when the lungs take the air in, because of the negative pressure, you can't hold the breath for a long time. The pressure, negative pressure cannot be held because the outside pressure is so much heavy and it has to take the breath. And moreover, the oxygen requirements of the body is too powerful. Among the oxygen requirements of the body, most of the oxygen, that means 20% of the oxygen requirement goes to 1 kilo organ, that is the brain. The brain's weight is around 1 kilo, 1000 grams. For females, it is around 900 grams. For males, it is around 1100 to 1200 grams. But more or less on an average, it is around 1000 grams. So this 1000 gram tissue, if the body weight is around 80 kilos or 100 kilos or 50 kilos, imagine 1 kilo tissue consumes almost 20% of the body, 20% of the oxygen that is coming in. So the brain cannot survive without oxygen for more than 3 seconds. If the brain is depleted of oxygen, it dies in 3 seconds. So that is the dire need, necessity, and situation for the brain, it has to be dependent on oxygen continuously. So that's the reason why we can't hold the breath for longer time. The body oxygen stores get depleted quickly. But in people who practice by holding of breath, like swimmers, divers, and some meditators and yogis, so they are different. They, through continuous practice, they made their body more more supple and less dependent on oxygen. That's a different issue. But average human body needs oxygen uninterruptedly, like uninterrupted power supply. The body's uninterrupted power supply is oxygen. So lungs carry this main work. Lungs, the doctor who treats the lung diseases is called as pulmonologist. And the science of this lungs is called as pulmonology. Pulmona means air. The science of air flowing through lungs is pulmonology. And the same pulmonology, the word pulmona, pneuma, and spiritus are all same, air. So from word spiritus, the word spirituality came into existence. And let us see how this breath and spirituality are connected. How this spiritus, the air, and the spirit, the soul, are related to each other. During inhalation, what happens? Let us understand this organ which separates the chest and abdomen. The most vital organ. This organ is called as diaphragm. It's a very powerful muscle which separates the thoracic organs from the abdominal organs. It literally separates. And a few tubes pass through this diaphragm. These tubes are, one is the food pipe, the windpipe, trachea, bronchi, the esophagus, otherwise called as the food pipe, and key vessels like aorta, inferior vena cava. The main vessels, the main vein of the body is inferior vena cava, and the main artery of the body is called aorta. All these organs, the vascular organs, the digestive organs, and the respiratory organs pass through the diaphragm, and it forms the barrier between the chest and abdomen physically and physiologically as well. So when you take breath, what happens is the lungs which lay on the diaphragm has to descend down, vertically down. That means the diaphragm has to contract. And when the diaphragm contracts, the lungs can descend into the abdomen. So the lower lobe of the lung takes the air first. So when the lower lobe takes the breath first, fills first, abdomen automatically rises. The abdominal muscles are relaxed during inhalation. And there are three types of lobes: the lower lobe, the middle lobe, and the apical lobe. And when the air fills from the lower lobe through the middle lobe and through the apical lobe, it gives a sensation of abdominothoracic respiration. Please understand this. So lower lobe first and apical lobe last. The apical lobe is the lobe which is in this area above the collarbone, otherwise called as clavicle. So the lung tissue, the tissue which is above this clavicle is the apical part of the lobe. The reason why the less shallow breathers are people who breathe less, who do not breathe fully. These are the people who suffer from many types of respiratory ailments, especially tuberculosis. Tuberculosis is one disease, prominent disease, typically seen in the tropical areas, the arid areas like Asia, India, etc. Why it is more common in India? Because of shallow breathing, poor breathing, lack of exercise. So we don't run fast, we don't do exercise. So there is no rapid breathing at all. So people who are addicted to the shallow breathing are the people who suffer from different types of pulmonary ailments, especially infectious ailments like pulmonary tuberculosis. So the air doesn't fill the apical lobe. So one full breath, that means when a person takes the breath in, the volume of the air is around half liter. That is 500 ml of air. And the lungs have such a great capacity. When you lay out the lungs totally, the surface area of the lungs is so powerful that when you lay out the lungs on the floor, it occupies the size of a lawn tennis court, a full lawn tennis court. So that is the size of the lung. Imagine air is entering into an area of lawn tennis court, this 500 ml. That means so much of surface area of the lungs is exposed to oxygen and the atmospheric air, and immediately the chemical process starts. The oxygen goes into the blood vessels, and the carbon dioxide and other toxic waste in the gaseous form moves into the lungs through this blood and lungs barrier. So there is a barrier between the lungs, alveoli, and the blood. So blood richly supplies the alveoli, that is grape-like tissue in the lungs, and there is a chemical called as surfactant. Surfactants means this chemical makes this lung elastic, loose, comfortable, and capable of taking the air in and capable of breathing it out. So this chemical is more in adult and less in the children. And it is even more powerful in the people who live in altitudes like Himalayas, people live in Tibet, people who live in Alps, people who live in higher altitudes of Andes. These people have different pulmonary system where the atmospheric air is called a rarefied zone. See the atmospheric air. If you see the atmospheric air, there are different layers of atmosphere. The first layer is called as troposphere, then stratosphere, then ionosphere, then radiosphere. The troposphere is the less than 9 kilometers from the surface of that is called as troposphere. Between 9 to 16, it is called as stratosphere. 16 to 17, we call ionosphere, and beyond 17, we call radiosphere, and everything is space and vacuum thereafter. So when you go to higher altitude, the oxygen levels is reduced. In the reduced oxygen area, that is, it's called a rarefied zone. So in higher altitude, the rarefied zone is more common. In this rarefied zone, also people who are living there, their lungs are totally different. Their surfactant levels are totally powerful. They're able to breathe in with one deep breath. So much oxygen is absorbed. There is a capacity of their lungs. Once you live in altitudes, you will know that. But suddenly, if you go to higher altitudes, for example, if you go by flight, Ladakh area, what happens? Or Alps or higher Himalayas, what happens? Suddenly, you will not be acclimatized. The process of adjusting to the decreased oxygen areas is called as acclimatization. The process is called as acclimatization. The acclimatization doesn't happen when you suddenly move from denser oxygen level to lower oxygen level. So you have to travel slowly by road, or if you go by flight, stay there for one day in oxygenated areas, then move on. Otherwise, what happens is you can't breathe. Suddenly you will get shocked. People can die also. So the acclimatization process is very, very important depending upon the altitudes. So the whole science of breath is very powerful science to understand. The diaphragm, which is much helpful in the process of inhalation, also helps in expelling the air out. During the exhalation, the diaphragm relaxes and the anterior abdominal muscles contract. When it contracts, the abdomen goes within during the process of exhalation. And during the process of inhalation, the ribs and the intercostal muscles means the muscles which are between the ribs. These are called as intercostal muscles, and these are supplied by nerve. Between each rib has got an artery, a vein, and a nerve. Intercostal nerve, intercostal artery, intercostal vein. These are three neurovascular structures between two ribs, every two ribs. Like that, we have 12 ribs. One counting from shoulders to upper abdomen. So these ribs move upward and outward to accommodate the air, and the diaphragm contracts. And when the breathing is more rapid, for example, a person is running, what happens? It also takes the support of other muscles. Like we have got a muscle. If you see the muscle here, women have, neck of the woman is beautifully described by the prominence of this muscle, sternocleidomastoid. So it is called as beauty muscle. This muscle is specially called as beauty muscle. Female or woman who has a prominent sternocleidomastoid or this ribbon muscle, which runs from this mastoid that is behind the ear to central part of this neck, this here. There is a bony prominence. The muscle runs from mastoid to here. This is called as beauty muscle for females. The more prominent it is, more beautiful is the neck of the woman. For example, if you see the cine actors, some actors like Rekha, she has a very beautiful sternocleidomastoid ribbon muscle, prominent ribbon muscles. So this sternocleidomastoid and scalene muscles and trapezius means shrugging muscle, the muscle which helps to shrug like this. So the triangular shape muscle here, these muscles are very helpful during the deep breathing process. So the trapezius muscles, the scalene muscles, the sternocleidomastoid muscles, all these muscles aid during a rapid breathing. And for rapid exhalation of the air, abdominal muscles again come into play. The more deeper the exhalation is, the more is the contraction of the abdominal muscles and more relaxed is the diaphragm. So during this process of the voluntary and involuntary incoming and outgoing of the air, because of the pressure gradient, the normal pressure of the lung, as I told, is -2 to -3 millimeters of mercury. And that element and the voluntary action of these combined coordinated efforts of these muscles, that is external intercostal muscles, diaphragm muscles, anterior-abdominal muscles, sternocleidomastoid, the scalene muscles, trapezius muscle, all these muscles put together in a coordinated way help us in the inhalation and exhalation during the normal and rapid breathing. So let us come to the spiritual aspect of this, what exactly happens. So when the child breathes, as I told, the normal natural breathing is the air enters into the lower lobe first. So the trachea divides into two bronchi. Each bronchus is singular, bronchi is plural. Each bronchus divides further into bronchioles. And these bronchioles divide further to terminate as alveoli. So the bronchus, the trachea divides at the place called as carina. This part is carina. This carina divides into two bronchi. So this bronchi divides, ramifies further and further and further, turns into alveoli final stage. So in the normal breathing, what happens is, because the bronchi is already into the chest area, the air straight away descends from nose, trachea, carina, bronchus, and bronchioli directly. That means lower part of the lung or lower lobe of the lung fills first. And when the mind is full of agitation, when the mind is full of frustration, depression, the lungs do not breathe well. The lungs breathe in a shallow way. That means instead of 500 ml of the air, which is the normal volume in a single inspiration, normal inspiration, not forced inspiration, normal inspiration, instead of 500 ml, it can go up to 200 ml or 50 ml. So when the air volume is lessened, what happens? Oxygen is also less absorbed from this air. The brain is kept in a dull, sullen state. When the normal breath is full volume, full tidal volume, the 500 ml air, the brain also feels fresh because it is continuously nourished with oxygen, uninterrupted oxygen flow. So the brain has to be kept in an uninterrupted way by way of keeping the volume of 500 ml standard way. The volume is reduced, the brain action will be reduced. If you think in terms of the neurophysiological aspects of the breathing and brain. So after as I told, the mind, when it is in agitation, frustration and all, the breath becomes more shallow. And the agitation, the frustration, the mental aspects, the emotional aspects of each individual is different and unique. There are no two individuals who have the same type of emotional patterns, who have the same types of thinking patterns. Because of the unique, totally individualized thinking and emotional patterns, the breath pattern is also totally unique to each and every individual. This we have to understand. Each individual breath pattern is absolutely unique. And the pattern of the breath, which is unique, is the personality of the person. If the breath is changed, the personality can be changed totally. If the breath pattern is totally changed and made into physiological way, normal way, energy gaining way, evolutionary way, naturally the mental patterns which have been working against evolution, the emotional patterns which are being our stumbling blocks, get annihilated, get destroyed. There is a reason why the breath patterns need to be revised. The breath patterns need to be rejuvenated. All types of patterns need to be destroyed, and it has to be natural. The natural is easy way of taking breath, easy way of expelling it out. And when attention is put to this breath, what happens? When the mind is connected to the breath, the evolution begins. The spiritual evolution of any person begins. How? What is there in attention? There is so much in attention. Where you put your attention, the energy goes. That is a common saying, great saying in spirituality. The spiritual world, we say, wherever the attention is, the energy goes there. If you put your attention on the breath, what happens? The exhalation part of the breath is more easy, more smoother, more comfortable, and it has element of letting go, natural element of letting go. For example, when a person relieves of weight of the physical body, for example, is carrying a weight of 50 kilos. If 50 kilos weight is kept aside, he feels very relieved, right? Similarly, when the exhalation is smoother, the person feels more in a relieving way, more in a fashion of letting go. So exhalation and letting go is synonymous. Letting go, which is required for removing these patterns of the mind, are naturally aligned with the exhalation of the breath. Inhalation is an effortful affair because there is some strain, there is contraction of diaphragm. When it comes to exhalation, diaphragm is totally relaxed. We're expelling the air in, the abdominal muscles smoothly recede. But when the mind is already in turbulence, when the mind is totally agitated, the abdominal muscles contract vigorously, contract turbulently, in a disturbing way, in a stertorous way, in a irregular way. So when the abdominal muscles contract in an irregular way, what happens is the breath exhalation, expelling of the breath also happens in a turbulent way. The letting go doesn't happen. And we get more and more agitated and frustrated. So deep, relaxed breathing is the natural breathing. And mastery of breath is that when this natural, easy, plus long, prolonged respiration happens in a comfortable way, that is called as mastery of breath. And that has to happen 24/7 during the wakeful state and dreamy state as well, and sleep state as well. Early morning, dawn to dusk, every moment when the breath is totally relaxed, when the breath is totally comfortable, effortless, and every time letting go happens with exhalation, then that is the best way of breathing, and that is called the mastery of breath. And this mastery of the breath, in order to attain it, some practice is required. This practice needs, first point is ease. It doesn't come with efforts. Please understand. The spiritual evolution never happens with efforts, any type of efforts. Never happens with any types of exercise. Never happens with any type of routines, effortful routines. It has to happen in a natural way, easy way, the child's way. When it happens, the whole scenario changes. So we have to practice the art of keeping ourselves at ease. It's a great art. It is not a science, it is art. Meditation is basically an art. It is not a science. When we talk about the mechanics, it might be a science. It might appear as scientific, but when it comes to the practice of meditation by way of aligning attention to breath, it is basically art. The art of keeping ourselves at ease. Keeping ourselves at ease is the greatest mastery in anybody's life. There is no mastery in life greater than attaining or achieving this inner ease. Childlike ease, childlike gaze. Observe the child's gaze. It is very easy, comfortable, soothing. See the adult's gaze. It is always focused, concentration, effortful, frowning. The child's gaze smooth, diverse, diffuse, cool. Adult's gaze, it is not cool. So the child's gaze is a reflection of one's mind. So this gaze, the easy gaze, is a reflection of one's mind. When the mind is more easy, the gaze also becomes easy. Breath and mind becomes easy when the breath becomes easy. So the easiness of the breath is more and more important. So today we will end this subject and we will practice meditation a little later. And if you have any questions related to the subject of the day, mechanics of the breath, you please ask, so that what is missing, what I have not covered, will be covered. Patanjali said, Dukkha daurmanasya anga mejetva shwasa prashwasa saubhavaha. Dukkha means suffering. Daurmanasya. Manas means emotion, the mind. Daurmanasya means wrong feeling. Suffering leads to wrong feeling, ill feeling of mind. The mind becomes ill. Frequent moments of suffering leads to illness of mind. That's what Patanjali wants to say. Anga mejayatva means a type of anxiety, a type of worriedness, a type of anxiety and worry because of anticipation, expectation, frustration, all these things. So with repeated suffering, it leads to daurmanasya, that is ill mind, which leads to anxiety. And this leads to shwasa prashwasa saubhavaha. The inhalation and exhalation will be disturbed. So how it has to be rectified, how the suffering has to go, how the anxiety has to go, how the illness of the mind has to go, you have to work through shwasa prashwasa, which was nishwasa, that is inhalation and exhalation. When you streamline it, streamline means the breath has to flow like oil, as Swami Rama says. It has to be smooth, it has to fall like oil, no turbulence, no pause, no gap, easy, continuous, no jerks. It is a single continuum. With continued attention, we master it. So, with continuous attention of breath in an easy way, comfortable way, without any efforts or concentration, then the illness of the mind goes away, the anxiety goes away, the frustration goes away, the suffering also goes away, just because of making the breath easier. Making the breath easier is the whole purpose of his life. The master's breath is always easier. That's why he's easy inside. The child is easy inside because the breath is easy. The abdominothoracic nature of the breath of the child has turned into thoraco-abdominal nature in adult. And when the adult starts entering on the path of meditation, his breath again takes a reverse direction. That is, from thoraco-abdominal nature, it takes abdominothoracic nature and he gets onto the hara, abdomen breathing. The hara breathing is abdomen breathing, otherwise called sushumna breathing. Anapana. The vertical downward movement, the vertical upward movement. That is called as anapana. Sati means memory. Smriti. The word for smriti in Sanskrit is sati in Pali. That is memory. The memory of this mechanics is very important. It makes the complete inhalation and exhalation essential for evolution of one's consciousness. Any questions? Welcome. Yeah.
Hello. Hello.
Yeah, please.
Sir, how do thoughts play a role in this breathing pattern?
Yeah. So when the mind is full of thoughts, it is not called as mindfulness. It is called excessive thinking, which is pathological, not physiological. A mind which is full of thoughts is pathological. It is not physiological, it is not normal, it is abnormal. When thoughts are more, we lose ourselves. The natural memory of remembering the spiritual wisdom gets lost with excessive thinking because we are occupied in a denser way. The thoughts may be of different nature, related to different types of things, situations, and people. But Thought is a thought. It has energy. Thought has energy. And the more we think, the mind, the voluntary aspects of the voluntary influence of the breath affects the respiratory pattern. As I told, respiratory system is both voluntary and involuntary. It is sympathetic and parasympathetic in nature. Sympathetic in the sense it is more effortful, parasympathetic or vagal in the sense it is more relaxing. So the sympathetic, there is a breathing called sympathetic breathing, that is aggressive, rapid, turbulent, disastrous breathing, which happens with excessive thinking. Vagal breathing or parasympathetic breathing means soft, easy, oil-like breath which doesn't have any jerks or pauses or gaps. This is called as parasympathetic breathing or vagal breathing or diaphragmatic breathing or hara breathing or sushma breathing, whatever you call it. So the mind has got direct relationship with the breath. It is because of the mind, the natural easy way of abdominothoracic breathing has been transformed into thoraco-abdominal breathing. All the people who breathe only through chest, that means the shallow breathers or chest breathers, are the people who are more agitated because the breath is not circulating throughout the alveoli. It is not going through the lawn tennis court completely, totally, in absorbing way. It is not happening. Because it is not happening, the breath is becoming more shallow. So at an anatomical level, at a physiological level, the oxygen is totally interrupted, jerky. If you understand from physiological level, if you understand from spiritual level, because of very excessive thinking, the breath pattern is totally more rapid, more shallow, and more thoracic in nature. The abdominal breathers are more composed, patient. They don't react. They respond. The reactive way of breathing is the chest breathing. The easy way of breathing is abdominal breathing. So the sympathetic aspects or the mental aspects of the control of the breath makes the breath patternized. With excessive thinking, the breath becomes patternized. It loses its easiness. It loses its naturalness. That's why it works against growth. It works against the evolution of consciousness. And you can't say your mind, now stop thinking. When you say stop thinking, it thinks more. So when you move that attention from mind to breath, what happens is automatically the mind gets settled. Settling of mind happens by way of allowing the breath settle in easy way, not otherwise. You cannot just allow the mind to settle. Make your breath settle. The mind automatically settles. The relationship between mind and breath is inseparable. As is your breath, so is your mind. As is your mind, so is your breath. Change the breath, change the mind. You can't change the mind to change the breath. So breath first, mind next. It is a system. But if you are intellectual way, in a Jnana Yoga, a person of Jnana Yoga, without doing any practice, or breath practice type of thing, they just by way of making his mind more pacified, cool, easy, his breath is automatically easier. A child doesn't have to effortfully make his breath abdominal. It is natural for him, easy for him. Every way of is also like that. Ramana Maharshi breath is also like that. Osho's breath is also like that. Swami Rama's breath is also like that. Easy, abdominal, diaphragmatic. Mind is easy. The easiness comes when the attention is more on the breath, especially exhalation, especially the terminal aspect of exhalation. Every terminal point of exhalation is a moment of nirvana. When it goes to the memory, then naturally every activity, every walk, every step that we take, every thought that we think, every morsel of food that we take, everything becomes meditative. It becomes more slower, and slowness leads to stillness. So all these daily activities, daily life makes you spiritual, provided you are attentive. If attention is lost, everything is lost. Attention in a relaxed way, not the effortful way. A relaxed attention is more important. A relaxed, passive, easy attention. That has to be mastered. And when that is mastered, the consciousness becomes within. You become antarmukha. The consciousness gets internalized. The pratyahara starts. After pranayama, pratyahara starts. That means you go within. You stay within. You don't come out. When you don't come out, then dharana, dhyana, samadhi starts happening on its own. You don't have to do anything. Yeah. Just allow some time, blossoms. When the season is right, everything blossoms. You have to allow the season to begin, to happen.
But why are thoughts less in the early hours? As soon as one gets up.
Not necessarily. If a person doesn't sleep well, he gets up with a lot of thoughts. But what happens is during sleep, very good sleep, deep sleep is, in the deep sleep or REM sleep, we call it as REM sleep. REM means rapid eye movement. When the sleep is deep, the muscles are more relaxed. During REM sleep, there are two types of sleep: REM sleep and non-REM sleep. During REM sleep, the muscles are flaccid, completely elastic and loose, and the breath is absolutely abdominal in nature. This is the time when lucid dreaming happens. And this REM sleep, the duration of REM sleep is very much shorter, very much less. In the whole of 6 hours or 8 hours of sleep, the duration of REM sleep is only few minutes. And during REM sleep, the breath, the volume, the speed, the frequency of air passing through both nostrils is same. In the wakeful state, the air entry is never same. Never same. One nostril dominates over other, and it changes every 90 seconds. Every 90 seconds, the dominance changes. That means if the right nostril is more dominant for the first 90 seconds, next 90 seconds, left nostril becomes more dominant. And the right and left are attached to the thermostat mechanism of the body, the Surya Nadi and Chandra Nadi. The reason why the temperature is constant in human bodies, 98.4 degree Fahrenheit. When you plug the one nostril, temperature of the body changes. When you have a lot of fever, breathe through right nostril. Temperature becomes normal. You can control temperature. You can control the thermostat mechanism. The homeostatic inbuilt inherent temperature controlling mechanism is mainly by breath. During sleep, what happens is, because of these factors, because of REM sleep, the relaxation is deadly more. There is a time you vacate the physical body. There is a time when you go to astral planes, meet old friends, gain a lot of wisdom. But if you sleep, if you get up in a lazy way, routine way, in a mechanical way, the 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. type of attitude that fixes your mind. If you are in a routine schedule, the chemistry of the mind, brain, the electrical process, everything is totally patternized and fixed. You can't get it. You can't get up easily. You have to forget. Spirituality is all about forgetfulness. It is not about remembering things. It is not. It is about how well do you forget. The ability to forget things, the ability to let go of yourself, that makes you more evolved. So early morning, you get up easily, comfortably, because the REM sleep duration is more. When the REM sleep duration is less, naturally, the eyes are more congested, the mind is more congested. You want 2 cups of coffee instead of 1. You become restless. You are restless and anxious. So the duration of REM sleep decides the quality of sleep. And the duration of REM sleep depends upon how conscious you are in the wakeful state. The more you are conscious in the wakeful state, the more duration of REM sleep you will get during night, sleep state, Sushupta Avastha. So, like every terminal point is like nirvana. REM sleep, that few minutes of REM sleep is equivalent to nirvana. Nirvana happens in these few minutes of sleep. In these few minutes of sleep, and every terminal point of breath, you are automatically in nirvanic state, provided you are conscious, provided you are able to remember. That's why it's called smriti, anapana smriti. Remember this. We come with memory, and that we have to take it to memory. The nirvanic state has to go into memory. Once it goes into memory, you don't need practices. You just memorize it, relive it, and everything is fine, and everything falls at right place. We'll talk more on this subject, sir.
How about dreams, sir? Dreams people forget. Some
Dreams?
people.
Please repeat.
Dreams are, say, one doesn't remember all the dreams. They forgets it as soon as he wakes up.
Yeah, it is difficult to remember dreams because there are many senses which do not happen in dreams. For example, in dreams, you don't have smell. You can't smell during dreams. You can't differentiate different types of smell. And sound doesn't exist in dreams. There are no sounds. The sounds of vehicles, the sounds of temple bells, all this do not happen. The sounds of blasts, you cannot listen. The way you hear sounds, the same thing doesn't happen during dreams. In dreams, it's basically visual images. The mind is nothing but impressions. Mind is nothing but images. So we do not remember dreams because it happens in a different realm, different frequency. Like there is a pressure gradient between lungs and atmospheric air. Similarly, the consciousness has got different gradients, consciousness gradients. The more the gradient is, the more you move further into higher realms, subtle realms, different frequencies, finer frequencies. See, the eye can see only between 800 to those objects which vibrate at 800 to 900 nanometers. The eye ear can listen only between 20 to 20,000 hertz. We can't hear the sounds which are less than 20 or more than 20,000. We can't see anything which is less than 800 or more than 900 nanometers in frequency. We can't see or hear. Similarly, to see the astral things, to wander in astral realms, different frequencies required. Inner sense, a different activity of different coordination of inner senses are required. The normal physical senses are not helpful in the astral realms. A different type of senses, a different types of capabilities and functions are required in the astral worlds. And those are remembered only when you elevate your frequency and it has to match or align to the world. And when you get up early in the morning, you are more denser again. That's the reason why most of the dreams are not remembered. Though we do travel, we do explore so many types of realms, we can't remember. This doesn't happen. We forget. Conscious forgetfulness is the hallmark of a master. How can you consciously forget? How can you do it? You let go consciously. That is a irony. Remembering of dreams happens when you are able to be more subtle, less denser, and your consciousness is astrophysical in nature. Not exactly physical, not exactly astral, astrophysical. That means whenever you move into astral world, when you want to be in physical world, you will be. So that type of personality, if you want to achieve, if you want to explore dreams, if you want to be a researcher of astral realms, you make your personality astrophysical, not physical. It depends upon your interest and ambition. Okay, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So we'll take up next session, next week, what subject we can discuss? Any suggestions? Bhosle sir?
Anything will do. All the subjects are interesting. Whatever you feel like, you can convey all the messages. Anything.
Yeah,
is
one has to make me
interesting.
feel, that is a problem.
No. All subjects are very interesting. Maximum people should take a benefit of this nectarine messages. That's what I feel.
That depends, sir. That depends.
Yeah. People should have strong desire rather to transform themselves.
Yeah.
That is also required. But we are beneficiaries. We take full advantage of whatever you convey to us.
Yeah. Yes.
We are happy.
Srikanth, any
Thanks.
topic you suggest?
Yeah, sure. We'll communicate on WhatsApp
Yeah.
and all.
All right, sir. All right.
Yeah.
So
Thanks
thank you
a
very
lot.
much.
Yeah.
We'll meet
Thanks a lot.
Saturday.
Yeah.
Thank you very
Yeah.
much.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
See you. Bye.